In 1966, a boy named Maurice Beetold ventured into a narrow, dead-end crevice. Decades later, in a strikingly similar incident, medical student John Jones found himself trapped upside down in a cramped passage that led to nowhere. These incidents, both marked by a crucial mistake of entering headfirst into the unknown, underscore a recurring danger in cave exploration. Could entering these spaces feet first potentially avert such disasters? At the Faculty of Truth, we delve into the compelling account of Neil Moss, a young man of 20, who took a feet-first approach into a dark and constricting shaft. Despite his precautions, the outcome was grim. Neil's exploration turned dire as he got stuck in a perilous, undiscovered tunnel. Hour by hour, rescue teams struggled against overwhelming darkness and thick mud, highlighting the grave risks that lurk beneath the surface of the earth and leaving a lasting imprint on the annals of exploration history. On March 22, 1959, a daring group of 8 adventurers ventured into the depths of Peak Cavern, a famed cavern overlooking Castleton in Derbyshire, England. Among the explorers were Oscar Hackett and Neil Moss, a 20-year-old philosophy student from Balliol College, Oxford, renowned for his adventurous spirit. Accompanied by members of the British Speleological Association, the team shared a palpable excitement about their expedition. Their objective was to explore a newly discovered fissure about half a mile from the cave's entrance, challenging the limits of the known cave system. Navigating through the labyrinthine cave, which descended approximately 1,000 feet below the surface, the cavers first encountered the Mucky Duck section, a narrow, waterlogged squeeze tunnel that became particularly treacherous after rainfall. This led them to the Boulder Passage, an easier path, albeit with its own set of challenges from irregular obstructions. About 150 meters in, a 3-meter ascent on the north wall of the upper gallery presented itself, leading to the challenging Pickering Passage, a long, narrow crawl that demanded both kneeling and extensive maneuvering and culminated in an awkward bend and a muddy sump above an eye hole just large enough for a human body, indicating the next series of hurdles. Beyond a thigh-deep, muddy pool, they reached the stalagmite chamber, now renamed Moss Chamber, adorned beautifully and holding a tight, mysterious shaft that had sparked Neil's intense curiosity. The exploration into the chamber took the group over an hour of intense, physical exertion, involving crawling and climbing deep into the Earth's bowels. Upon arriving, they took a moment to appreciate the surrounding natural splendor, their fatigue momentarily forgotten as they approached the ground fissure, intrigued by what lay beyond. The fissure's entrance allowed for easy passage, measuring roughly 1 meter by 70 centimeters. Filled with intrigue and guided by the estimates that the shaft extended about 40 feet deep, with a slightly off vertical drop for the first 12 feet, followed by a convoluted corkscrew twist and a steep 10-foot inclined bedding plane leading to another vertical 18-foot descent, the group prepared for deeper exploration. Around 3:30 p.m., they lowered a flexible-sided ladder into the shaft to aid their descent into these confined, challenging spaces. Neil Moss, unsecured by a belay due to the narrow confines expected to provide natural bracing, began his cautious descent into the unknown, his movements calculated as he navigated downward through the twisting, narrow passage. Shortly after beginning his descent, Neil Moss encountered a highly constricted, claustrophobic corkscrew passage. Despite the difficulties, he successfully navigated this section, feeling a brief surge of accomplishment. However, he was soon to discover further challenges. Throughout the descent, he kept in constant contact with his team, reassuring them that all was going well. After maneuvering through the corkscrew twist, he accessed the deeper parts of the shaft. As he progressed, he noticed irregularities with his footing, initially dismissing them as minor obstacles like those he had previously overcome. But as he continued, it became apparent that a boulder was blocking his path. Realizing he could neither move the boulder nor bypass it in the tight space, he made the tough decision to retreat. Tragically, as Moss attempted to climb back up, he found that he could not lift his feet high enough to scale the ladder. He became wedged in a narrow elliptical crevice only 18 inches wide, desperately calling out to his teammates for help. Despite attempts to pull him up using the ladder, it jammed between the cave walls and Moss's body, trapping him further. His calls for help echoed hauntingly through the cavern. Initially, his companions believed that a simple rope rescue would suffice. However, they quickly grasped the gravity of the situation when multiple attempts to extract him with ropes failed, each rope snapping or shearing against the sharp rock edges. Panic likely set in for Moss as he found himself firmly stuck just below the corkscrew section, unable to use his legs or arms effectively. Realizing the direness of the situation, some team members left to seek additional help. Within hours, volunteers from across England gathered at Peak Cavern, united by a common goal to rescue Neil. The Royal Air Force Police and even the Navy contributed to the efforts. Yet, not long after Neil was trapped, another challenge arose. The air quality in the shaft deteriorated severely as Moss's presence restricted airflow, leading to his increasing disorientation and erratic behavior. He even suggested to rescuers that they should take a break and eat, indicating his compromised awareness of the peril he was in. Experienced rescuers tried to reach him, but one after another they were driven back by the toxic air, with 3 losing consciousness during their attempts. Eventually, volunteer Ron Peters managed to secure a rope around Moss's chest, but pulling him only aggravated his breathing troubles. The community around the cave rallied, bringing ropes, oxygen masks, and makeshift stretchers, determined to navigate the treacherous, narrow shaft. However, the cramped conditions and polluted air made the descent arduous and dangerous. Rescuers emerged exhausted, their eyes irritated and lungs struggling for air. The Royal Air Force intervened, airlifting oxygen cylinders and other specialized equipment to the scene. A delivery of oxygen tanks at 12:30 a.m. raised hopes of improving the situation enough to facilitate Moss's extraction. Though the air quality slightly improved, it remained dangerously low, prompting continued efforts to pump oxygen into the shaft overnight. The next morning, 18-year-old June Bailey arrived, ready to brave the depths. She even proposed the drastic measure of breaking Moss's collarbones, if necessary, to widen the space for extraction, highlighting the extreme measures considered to save him. Despite the valiant efforts of June Bailey and other volunteers, the overwhelming toxic fumes within the shaft proved insurmountable, forcing each rescuer to retreat. By the early afternoon of Monday, almost a full day after Neil Moss had first descended into the cave, faint sounds of his breathing could still be discerned. The rescue team remained steadfast in their resolve, employing compressed air cylinders in hopes of dissipating the lethal air that had accumulated. The shaft's conditions were dire, with mud coating the walls, ladder, and rope, making it difficult to discern Moss's exact position. The only visible signs were of a muddy obstruction deep below where Moss was irrevocably stuck, his arm tragically wedged beneath a ladder, wrung in his last desperate attempts to free himself. The situation grew even more precarious as relentless rain began to threaten flooding in the Mucky Ducks section of Peak Cavern, prompting advisories for all personnel to evacuate for their safety. Once the rain subsided and accompanied by an RAF doctor who had joined the efforts, the rescue team cautiously made their way back to the shaft's entrance where they had last heard Moss. This time, there was silence. On Tuesday, March 24, 1959, Neil Moss was officially declared deceased. In a somber reflection of the circumstances, Dr. Hugh Kidd noted it as the unique instance where he pronounced death without direct visual confirmation of the deceased. Throughout this harrowing ordeal, Moss's father, Eric Moss, stood vigil at the cave's entrance. It was he who made the heart-wrenching decision to request that his son's body remain where it was, prioritizing the safety of the rescue teams over the recovery of his son. Contrary to what some reports later claimed, the section of the shaft where Moss remained was sealed off with loose rocks from the chamber floor and not concrete.
The tragic fate of Neil Moss resonated worldwide, capturing the attention of the media and making headlines in the United States, Australia, and the United Kingdom. Today, the chamber where Moss spent his final moments is known as Moss Chamber, a solemn tribute to a brave young explorer whose life was cut tragically short by the very passion that drove him to explore the unknown depths of the earth.